Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication of Buster Murdaugh. Well, he took the stand during his father's trial. I'll talk a little bit as to why we're doing that in just a second. Let's go ahead and roll the intro first. My friends over at Yesoul have been so kind as to send me one of their pieces of exercise equipment, the Yesoul G1 Max. Are you looking for an all-in-one fitness solution that can meet all of your exercise needs? If so, then I suggest taking a look at the Yesoul G1 Max that I am using here. You can tailor your cardio workout to your preferences with 100 levels of resistance adjustment. You can also tailor your strength program to your specific needs by adjusting the elevation angle by up to 45 degrees. But that's not all. The Yesoul G1 Max also has a 32-inch screen for an even more immersive workout experience, as well as 8 watts of dual-channel sound. And with real-time exercise data monitoring, you can manage your workout more scientifically and efficiently. But perhaps most importantly, the Yesoul G1 Max is compatible with popular platforms such as YouTube, Netflix, and more, providing you with even more options for a workout. So why delay is, I suppose, the big question. Take your fitness journey to the next level with the Yesoul G1 Max, the smarter, louder, and larger option for all of your workout requirements. Order yours now using the link in the description of this video and use code OBSERVE10 to get 10% off your purchase. Each order using that code not only will get you 10% off, but it will also help support the channel as well. Again, order today using the link below and use my code, which is OBSERVE10, to get 10% off of your order. And every single purchase using that code will be supporting the Observe channel as well. Thanks again to Yesoul for sending me their G1 Max bike, and back to our regularly scheduled programming. Okay, so now, as I said, a little bit of a backstory as to why now Buster is suddenly having all of the attention on him. So, on a summer night in July of 2015, an apparent tragedy occurred in a neighborhood of Hampton County, South Carolina. The body of a teenager named Stephen Smith was found lying in the middle of the road with severe head trauma. It is important to note that the troopers that were on the scene that night noted that Stephen's injuries did not seem to appear to be related to a car accident. Despite a police investigation into Stephen's death, his case eventually went cold. This led Stephen's mother, Sandy, to hire a private investigator to look into what happened to her son. What the PI uncovered was particularly chilling. Buster Murdaugh, the oldest son of Alec and Maggie, was rumored to have had something to do with Stephen's death. According to Stephen's friend Olivia, who was interviewed for the Netflix series, Stephen was openly gay. As the rumor mill went, classmates Buster and Stephen supposedly had a secret relationship that would have damaged the Murdaugh family name if it ever got out. One theory then was that Buster allegedly killed Stephen to keep their secret quiet. However, there has been little to no evidence to prove this rumor. A big part of the rumors surrounding Stephen's death could be attributed to the fact that once the Murdaugh family name was mentioned in connection to this possible crime, any investigation into what happened to Stephen just seemed to fade away. Or at least that is what private investigator Steve Peterson said on the Netflix docuseries. It is quite disconcerting that Stephen's murder is still unsolved, and how he died seems to still remain a mystery to this day. Hopefully, the truth will be able to be uncovered, no matter how uncomfortable or difficult it may be. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing some of the footage from his time on the stand to be able to help lay some of the groundwork as this new investigation reopens. So I think that's enough of the chit-chatting of everything. Let's go ahead and dive into the footage itself, and we'll just, we'll do as we normally do.
Can I call you Buster?
Yes, sir.
I'm John. And I want to first off tell you, I am sorry about your mother.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry about his mother.
Well, if you step back a little bit, I can hear you.
And I'm sorry about your brother.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry about your grandfather.
Thank you.
Okay, real quick here, we're hearing some rapport being built in between the two, as there's a lot of apologies and trying to relate about your mother, about your brother. Now, one of the things that we'll be looking at during this time that many people picked up on was that Buster seemed to display very little to no emotion in regards to what the incidents that are being covered and talked about, and even just reflected on, are being brought up. So that is a fascinating part, but we're hearing rapport being built here. This is likely an intentionally done thing to be able to help the questioning thereafter be a little bit more sincere. Let's continue.
He was nice to me when I was a young assistant solicitor. I'm sorry for your loss.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't have any questions for you, Buster.
Okay.
Before the questioning starts in here, a few of the things that we're noting non-verbally is just that Buster's sitting quite small in the frame that he is in. He's not trying to take up any extra space. This doesn't reek of confidence, which is okay. In this area, it would make more sense for him to be able to try to take up this smaller, more humble position. But we're also seeing a little bit of a manipulator come in on the inside of his mouth as well. This could be in relation to nerves. Maybe he had a snack beforehand. There's a number of different things that could be centered around. There's not enough in context to be able to say. But that's what we're seeing non-verbally so far. Let's continue watching.
When you are leaving the main house, you told Mr. Griffin that the main entrance was the brick entrance,
Yes, sir.
but there's also a side entrance or by the kennels or
Yeah.
entrance exit.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just a totally different entrance.
And the mailbox was at the side entrance.
Yes, sir.
The kennel entrance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why was that? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it's just I really don't know.
I don't either. But the packages would come.
I'm going to go ahead and pause that there because this was an I don't know question that didn't seem to have too much weight behind it. So it's something that we can kind of use as an establishing for the baseline. That's how he answers I don't know in this specific scenario. So what we're seeing is a small micro head shake no. He's also looking down, breaking eye contact to be able to try to visually recollect, spatially recollect, and he comes up with I don't know why it's laid out that way, which would make sense. Why would it matter to him how the land was laid out? But let's keep watching.
This would come to, he said, the kennel side.
They would come to the shed.
Okay. And a lot of times y'all would use that kennel entrance exit to go just like you'd use the main one, right?
Yeah, you would. I would say that I more so tended to use the main one, the one that I say is the brick pillars. But yeah, I mean, you could certainly leave either way.
If you were leaving the main entrance and you got down, you're leaving the house and you're going toward the brick.
All that I want to know is that here is you're leaving the main entrance. They're talking about all of the area around the kennels, which is where the crime scene is. And so we're seeing Buster do a pretty substantial lip compression here and lip pursing as well. This is agitation. Now, that doesn't mean that he's being guilty in this area or desynchronized in this area. It is just something that we're seeing across his face. We do want to make note of where it is while talking about leaving this entrance. Perhaps there's something else that might pop up around that. However, let's just keep watching to see how this goes.
Brick. And then where it's kind of a Y where it kind of cuts off to the kennel too, right?
Sure.
So you go straight or left. If you were leaving at night going straight, and if you were looking out to the left and the lights were on, you'd be able to see the lights on at the kennel just from that little Y, wouldn't you?
Maybe, depending on what lights were on and whatnot. I mean, if it was fully lit up, maybe.
Okay. And just from that Y, instead of going straight, from that distance, you'd be able.
I want to also make another note about Buster's nonverbal during this area. He is synchronized again, maybe, and he's doing micro shakes. Yes, this is affirmative. That would be synchronized. I would believe him on this front. Also, if you look at photographs of the area itself, yes, you could see how you could see certain lights on. So that does make sense. So we've seen these two different areas where he's answered rather inconsequential questions, but we've seen him answer them rather authentically, so that gives us an idea as to what he looks like while he's recollecting and responding authentically. Later on, if we're starting to see any form of desynchronization or anything along those lines, it's easier for us to pick up on because we have this now to be able to work off of. Let's continue.
Distance, you'd be able to, if the lights were on fully, you'd probably be able to see them.
Maybe, yes, sir.
Almeida where your grandma and granddaddy were, is that close to the, I think it's close to the law firm, isn't it?
Alameda?
Yes, sir.
Close to the law firm? I wouldn't say so. I mean, anywhere in Hampton is close to anywhere in Hampton because it's not very big.
Fair enough.
But, I mean, it's a 10-minute, 12-minute drive out to Alameda, I would think, from the law firm.
So this seems to be a pretty straightforward and, in my opinion, authentic answer as well. That 10-minute drive, and as we're seeing that, you see a small microshake no that he's got in here. It's probably like a 10-minute something or another drive, and then he shifts over to a positive. So that microshake no, that is something that I have to hone in on and look at it in context. Out of context, it can quite certainly mean that he's being desynchronized, possibly telling the seat. However, in the context of what's going on and what he's talking about, it would also make a lot more sense that he's using the "you would not believe" or "you might find it unbelievable" or "I'm not dead positive, but." So there's the no, and then he shifts quite cleanly after that into a positive shake yes, while still doing these same sort of recollection expressions that we're seeing with the breaking of eye contact, looking off to the side to be able to try to spatially remember certain things. This all makes sense. So far, there hasn't been anything that's like a red flag for me to be able to dwell on with Buster. I will note that he is maintaining a very, very emotionless state. I heard somebody describe him as being stoic even during this time, and I feel like that fits rather nicely, but let's keep watching to see how this plays out.
I think, Mr. Duck, could you bring up 131? Can I ask him to do that? Sure. I know Mr. Harper been exposed to this. Is Mr. Griffin's witness. So you don't have to get, but you see, is this kind of where you said everybody would park?
It's right. So if you look...
You mind if I come up here?
No, sir, you can. So if you look right off this point...
You might want to come down here if you don't mind. Just the jury. When did you first mention that to anybody about parking in the yard there?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, when did you first discuss that with anybody as far as where the car is parked at your grandma and granddad's house? When was the first time you talked to anybody about that?
Couple days ago.
A couple of days ago? Okay. That's the first time you mentioned that?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so during this time, when was the first time you mentioned that? The thing that sticks out to me is the lack of confidence behind his tone and also the increase in his pitch. So we're hearing a lot of tenseness in his vocal cords as his pitch increases dramatically a couple days ago. And then also there's no force behind his words either, so that's not encouraging me to feel like he's really projecting it confidently. And then the question is reiterated, to which his response is then sure. And that also pushes me to believe that that might not be the actual answer. So that area there, that little cluster, is a red flag. I don't think that he was telling the complete truth in that area. Now, whether or not that's consequential, it's difficult to say at this time, but it is something definitely to keep in mind. So let's keep watching.
And then that would have been after Shelley testified, right? Shelley Smith?
I guess. I don't really remember when Miss Smith testified.
Miss Smith.
That was a really interesting thing that he did there in regards to Miss Smith. A very, very substantial head dip in there, and then also a lot of force fell out of his voice, and his pitch dropped off dramatically. That is a spike in his nonverbal communication. As to why that is, I'm not sure, but there is definitely a certain level of extra psychological and emotional processing that went around Miss Smith's testifying. Not sure what that is, but let's keep watching.
Did you bring that to somebody's attention, or did somebody ask you about it?
I couldn't. I'm not sure.
That I couldn't, I'm not sure. He says I couldn't do or couldn't imagine in other areas of his testimony as well. So that verbal patterning already is there. So the fact that he started that, then stops and switches to I'm not sure, that could be seen as a vocal spike. However, considering that along with that, we're seeing the micro shake no that we have seen in other areas and context definitely lining up with his authenticity, then I would be more likely to believe the nonverbal side of things rather than the verbal flub up that it seemed as though he had there. So that doesn't seem to be a red flag in my opinion, but let's keep watching.
And I think you keep forgetting I'm on cross. You testified that how many times had you been there with your dad? I wasn't quite clear with your answers to Mr. Griffin. I'm not trying to be difficult, Buster.
I understand, and I can't give you an approximate number, but I mean, I've been out there with him several times.
And would you always call? You said you called. Did you always call when you got there?
Yeah, I feel like most of the time you would call just to tell, because the ladies get nervous. If you hadn't called and they see a car pulling in the driveway, it's just easier to call and let them know, like, hey, we're going to be pulling around. Please unlock the door.
All during that time, I'm seeing affirmative head nods in there, and they're all micro, so they're very small, less likely to be controlled, more likely to be authentic. So seeing that in throughout there, it does seem as though Buster's telling the truth that he would regularly call if they're showing up to this area at whatever given time. So far, this part seems to be pretty authentic. Let's keep watching.
We'd like to come in.
Had you ever been over there at 6:30 in the morning?
Have I ever been out there at 6:30 in the morning? Just like overall,
I guess.
I've been out there at 6:30 in the morning before going.
So here he buys time by restating the question that has just been stated quite clearly, but then to be fair and to play devil's advocate for him, it seemed as though it was a fairly random question. Have you ever been out there at 6:30 in the morning? Which is it's an odd question, and he answers it, and the answer that he delivers, the confusion that's in there, the hesitation that's in there verbally and vocally, all does line up with how rather confusing the questioning itself seems, or just out of the blue it seems to be. So that does make sense. It does make it to where it's muddy. There's nothing that I can really tell around that because of the confusion of the actual question. So we'll just keep in mind some of these patterns that he showed up during this, and we'll see if they line up anywhere else.
Before going hunting and whatnot.
And you called then also then, right?
Well, that was
going into the house.
Yeah, sure.
Just let them know, especially 6:30 in the morning.
Sure.
That doesn't seem super likely there. We saw even just a level of uncertainty going back and forth, the head bobbing back and forth, and the shrugging, and he says, yeah, sure, dismissively. And so that doesn't really push me to believe him in this point, but again, it doesn't seem as though it's consequential for the specific case that we're talking about. We're just gathering information non-verbally as inevitably Buster's case continues to unfold. Let's keep watching.
30 in the morning.
Sure.
Okay. Your mom loved Edisto, didn't she?
Yes, sir, she did.
I love Edisto. She was actually getting some work done down there, wasn't she?
Another instance of rapport building between question and answer. And this is to inspire this level of trust so that perhaps Buster can be more honest, so on and so forth. It is technically manipulation, but it's one that's meant in goodwill. Let's continue.
Yes, sir. She was getting some work done on the house.
And on this date, June 7th, literally there were people inside doing work that day, weren't they?
I think so.
Yeah. And her plan was to stay down there that night, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't know what her plan was.
All right, so we're seeing that, I don't know what her plan was. He does break eye contact and look away in a way that has not been shown before. It's not spatially recollecting anything. It doesn't even seem to be recollecting anything. He seems to be observing something, maybe within the room, something along those lines. But we're also seeing the micro shake no during that as well, which would lead me to believe that he's being authentic during this, where he's saying that he doesn't know. Micro shake no does seem to be synchronized. That big and very prevalent eye contact breaking thereafter is interesting to me. So it's something that I want to make note of. Perhaps there is something around that. Maybe he did know a little bit more, not positive. But from what we're seeing non-verbally, it does seem as though he was being authentic here. Let's continue.
You had, I think the last time you'd been to Moselle, you said was the spring, maybe a few months prior to this? Mm-hmm. Okay. And you have to say yes for the court reporter, not for me. Just
Yes. Sorry.
And you talked to your mom.
I want to make note that we're seeing this is the last time that you were in a place. He says he already has his lips compressed again. So we're seeing that. And then we're hearing, oh, would you have to say, yes, it's not for me, it's for the records. Then he does this again. And then he does another lip compression as well, which is likely in response to him being called out about his verbiage on that, because he also says, I'm sorry. And now that lip compression there at the end does line up with what lip compressions can often signify. It's this level of, I said or vocally produced a thing that shouldn't have been done, or I shouldn't have. This could be deceit. This could be speaking at the wrong time, speaking in the wrong way. You might see that pop up. So it pops up there. So then in the times earlier where we saw that coming out, it is still something that we need to make note of. Now we know that if he does say something or vocally utter something that does not line up with the situation, he will do a lip compression at times in regards to that. So there is at least that level of psychological link between those two. It's good to be able to make note of. We'll keep our eye on that specific tell as the testimonies and trials and everything carry out from here. But let's just keep watching for now.
Talked to your mom that day on June 7th.
Yes, sir.
And I think you had talked to Paul the last time on the 5th, if I'm not mistaken. June 5th is what you told in one of the interviews.
Sure.
Okay. And
Again, just real quick, the mentioning of the shirt, that specific answer obviously only conveys a level of uncertainty. And then with the frantic looking around, eyes darting around thereafter, he's not certain on that. On most levels, however, paired with the micro shake, yes, that is also in there, then that would make sense, that confusion. Maybe he doesn't know exactly when it was that he spoke last, but if he said it then maybe that's it. So that could be the reason that we're seeing this come out here. Let's keep watching.
And Mr. Griffiths asked you about the financial troubles and that have come out here. You had no knowledge of your dad's financial difficulties at all, did you?
No, sir.
I mean, you really didn't.
No, sir, I really didn't.
And as far as you knew, financially, the family was sound.
Okay, so during those times, no, sir, I really didn't. So both of those times, I would actually lean towards him being authentic in this area. He did not pack the sentencing. He did not even offer sentence phrasing that separated him, the subject, from the verb or the distasteful action. So nothing that I saw pop up during that time would indicate desynchronization or possible deceit. He does do a dry swallow after stating, no, sir, I did not. And so that is in there. It does not seem to be incriminating. So during that area, I would be more likely to believe him. Now, something that I do want to make note of is that the Murdaugh family is a family of lawyers. So there's always a level of how coached, how trained, and how prepared for this was Buster, even just from how Buster grew up. And that does make things more difficult. Perhaps he is much better at composing himself on a stand. His father wasn't, but perhaps he is. And so that would make a read like I'm trying to do here a lot more difficult without extra contextual footage and resources. But let's keep watching this.
It was sound.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You went to Wofford.
I did go to Wofford.
Go Terriers, for the record.
Thank you.
But everything, as far as you knew, financially was okay. And when did you learn it wasn't?
I guess on September whatever that day in September was.
So back in the birthday, I guess for your dad, Memorial Day down at Edisto.
Sure.
Defense exhibit, and I apologize, I don't know what number it was just played. I believe Mr. Chris Wilson is hugging your dad.
Yes, sir.
Okay. He's a family friend.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You didn't know then that your dad owed Chris Wilson or stole $192,000 from him, did you?
I did not.
And I'm not saying that to be mean, but you really didn't know that.
That's correct. Didn't know.
And the boating accident that Mr. Griffin asked you about.
But to go ahead and pause again, it seems as though, again, in these areas, especially centered around the finances, that Buster really did not seem to have a level of no in that entire circumstance. So So far, every time that that's been brought up, everything that he has delivered has been fairly synchronized, so I would be more inclined to believe him, but that is just on the financial portion of it. Let's keep watching.
That was pressure on the family, wasn't it?
I don't know that pressure's the right word. I mean, it's definitely an uneasy feeling. You know, your brother is criminally charged, and then you, myself, and my father have civil charges. I mean, definitely unsettling.
I mean, it caused stress within the family, didn't it?
It was stressful. I wouldn't say within the family, because I mean, you know, we supported each other. And
sure. And I'm not questioning that, but I mean, your mom felt ostracized.
Yes, sir.
So I'm watching Buster's eyes during this time, and they start to move a fair bit more. There's not a substantial increase in blinking or anything along those lines, but he is looking around a lot more. He's also having some vocal difficulty, having a few verbal flub-ups, and then also we're hearing a lot of the force behind his words drop off as he's talking much more softly and much more low. So this confidence, this lack of confidence in this area is a red flag to me. And this is in regards to the boating accident that many believe that the Murdaughs just kind of covered up because it was pretty incriminating towards Paul, because Paul had been drinking and so on and so forth. So in this area, seeing that sort of tell come out again, and we saw this come up previously, even in this testimony, that indicator of possible lack of sincerity or at least lack of confidence is alarming to me. Perhaps there is something a little bit more around that than what we are privy to. I'm sure that more will continue to be unearthed in regards to the Murdaugh family involvement on a number of levels of different instances here. But for now, let's just keep watching this.
Yes, sir.
She even more so wanted to say that and stuff?
Yes, sir.
It really... I mean, you were a little frustrated with Paul yourself, weren't you?
In
Just
terms
as far
of
as using your ID and getting all that. And that case is over, okay?
Sure.
But I mean, you didn't like it when you used your ID yourself. And I'm not trying to go anywhere, Buster, but he'd use your ID sometime and you didn't want him to.
Mr. How many questions you're going to ask? Questions, comments? What's the question? What's the question?
Did you like it?
Yes, sir.
Did he used your ID, didn't he?
Objection's overruled.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Did Paul use your identification?
Yes,
Did that frustrate you?
sometimes.
Okay. You were shown the tree video.
I'm going to go ahead and pause and just thinking about that little interaction that we just saw there with the number of times I have to reiterate the same question. The question itself seemed as though it was leading. It seemed as though that was the goal of the person asking the questions, was to get Buster to admit that he had animosity towards Paul at times for using his ID. Now, whether or not that plays into the instances of Paul and Maggie's deaths, I'm not certain, but that could be the point of this, is to be able to help us understand the context of the relationship between Buster and Paul, possibly. But during that time, I didn't see any areas of desynchronization from Buster. However, I will note that he is being very careful about what he does and doesn't answer, which is pushing me to believe that he's very familiar with all of the aspects that are playing out in front of him here. So he's waiting until it clears up before he starts answering, which is training coming through. So this is fascinating to be able to make note of. But again, non-verbally speaking, he hasn't really shown anything in this area that would be considered desynchronization. But let's just keep watching.
With the shirt and the pants, you remember that?
Yes, sir.
When you saw your dad on the night of June 7th, what did he have on?
When I had made my way up to the house, he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
And who laundried his clothes?
At that period of time, would have been Blanca, and then my mom also does laundry sometimes.
But on a day-to-day, did Blanca take care of your dad's clothes, laundering, cleaning, folding?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're on this question of the clothing. During this time, I am paying attention to the micro shakes, yes, again, and those seem to be quite synchronized throughout this area. Afterwards, he does a lip lick as well as a bit of a swallow in there that lets me know that there's a level of anxiety or nerves around this. And he also has some difficulty vocally as well. Let's see how this question develops and see if there's anything that reveals itself.
Mr. Griffin asked you about, I'm going to do that. You never went back to Moselle after this incident?
Well, I mean, after
Or did you?
if you take June 7th on June, I mean, I've been back to Moselle since then, but I've never slept another night at Moselle.
And did your dad? Then strike that. Beg portion on it. Beg court's indulgence. Did your dad try to get you to go hunting out there again one time or suggest it?
He asked if I wanted to, and if I wanted to, that I could.
Or you didn't want to?
No, sir. Didn't want to go.
That's all I have. Thank you, Buster.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Redirect.
Very briefly, John.
Buster, if your mother, when she went to Edisto and stayed for multiple nights, would she take Bubba with her?
Yeah, usually she'd take a combination of Bubba and maybe another dog, Grady.
Okay.
She would take dogs with her. Yes.
Right. And you understand, Bubba and Grady were at Moselle the night of June 7th.
I do. Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. You may step down. Your next witness.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and stop the footage here. Now, obviously, there is a lot more to this case. And since a prior case has now been reopened, then obviously there will be a continual stream of new evidence, new files, things like that. So I might be able to keep up with this case. Something that I don't want to do is, especially because of the size of this channel, is sway any potential jurors or anything along those lines from being able to use all of the evidence that they have access to in the courtroom. So I will offer this disclaimer again. These videos are meant for entertainment purposes only. They should not be used in any court of law or for any professional evidence in regards to these cases. Please keep that in mind. So what I was able to see during this time here was a fair bit of synchronization actually from Buster, and all of the areas that were pushed at or questioned, it seemed as though he was being authentic in. Now, like I said, there is a bit more footage to be able to work through. So if you would like me to be able to start looking through some of the other footage, let me know in the comments of this video. Thank you for watching it all the way through to this point. I really do appreciate that. If you would like to be able to help support me in any other different ways, you can go to the socials, go to my Patreon. Any of those things are great options and ways to do that. But without further ado, that's all that I've got for today. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.